This is Larry Hayward, pastor of Westminster Presbyterian Church in Alexandria, Virginia. As I indicated in last week's devotional, I'm recording today's devotional earlier than you will tune into it. I'm actually recording it on Friday morning, April 23rd. It is a follow-up to last week's devotional, recorded as lawyers were making their final arguments in the Derek Chauvin case. I have several reactions I want to share. I was thankful for the verdict, as it matched what at least my outsider's eye was seeing on the video, and what my limited following of the trial led me to believe was the right verdict. I was glad that it was unanimous, that it involved a conviction on all three counts, and that it was arrived at quickly, as I think courts often have more credibility when they act decisively and thus bring clarity concerning a case and the larger issues surrounding it. On a practical level, I think the verdict limited what could have been an explosive reaction had it gone the other way, and that would have made life following the verdict more difficult. But even though the prosecution presented a compelling case, given the history I outlined last week of the rarity of police convictions on matters of misconduct, particularly involving Black men, I was mildly surprised at the verdict. It could have, in fact, gone the other way. In many societies throughout history, trials are historic events. The trial of Socrates, the trial of Galileo, the Salem witch trial. Trials are crucial to the individuals involved. They determine placement in foster homes, adoption, termination of parental rights, child custody, child support payments, property settlements and divorces, outcomes in arrest for youthful offenders, and of course adults as well, whether someone goes to treatment or jail, and how many chances they receive. If you are ever on trial, it is likely one of the most important events in your life, and most often a turning point for good or ill. I hope the Chauvin trial will reduce the need for us to be on the streets or in the courts, but will move us into the halls of Congress and state houses to genuinely address and solve to the best of our ability the issues in policing and criminal justice that have given rise to this trial, and the underlying issues of race and economic disparity, family breakdown, education, health care, and simply the quality of our cultural life as a people that still plague us, despite the many blessings that we experience and live in this country. A conviction in this case gives us a bit of space to do this. I hope we will take advantage of the slight opening in this otherwise terrible event. When we speak of trials, many have been convicted across the ages for threats to the state and for their religious views. Think of the impact of the trial that Jesus Christ has had on our personal faith in the history of the world. Whether you relate to his trials before Pilate and Caiaphas and the death sentence that followed, as satisfying God's sense of justice by his taking the punishment for the sins of humanity, including our own, as his walking into the eye of evil and overcoming it by giving his life, or his serving as the ultimate example of self-giving love and inspiring us through his example. His trial and death sentence lead us to know the depths of God's love for us, and his subsequent resurrection leads us to know that who he was and what he did and how he lived embody the promise of what God will bring about at the end of all time. The trial of Jesus Christ and the divine verdict of victory and the resurrection that followed allow us to trust the promised future, to live in response to it, to live toward it in all that we say and do, plan and implement in this world, including every system we construct for our lives together: legal, legislative, political, personal, familial, social. His trial was very important in all of human history and in our lives. Amen.